we wanted to take a quick look back at a story that we've covered a number of times on this show, and it's one that finally some studies are coming out about. We hate to be sort of Luddites and against the adoption of these new technologies, but when we saw those e-scooters show up over in Tampa,
oh, here we go.
We told you there were going to be problems. We told you all you got to do is use your common sense. And, of course, I've been the victim myself of being on one of these kind of devices and falling off of it. I mean, it's easy to do when you got the itty-bitty wheels and you got the center of gravity of a person is much, much higher than that. You get the thing going 10 or 15 miles an hour, you hit a bump and you're going right off that thing, right off of it. So what we wanted to share with you is some studies have finally come out on injuries from these e-scooters, and they came out of the University of California, San Francisco, and they're showing that there is a surge, an absolute surge in injuries from these e-scooters. In fact, in about the last, it actually goes back a little further than that because the studies are only up to date through 2018, but between 2014 and 2018, so that's 4 years, there was a huge increase in injuries on these scooters, and that's about when they started placing them in cities like San Francisco and other cities that are a little bit more advanced, quote unquote, than Tampa. And this particular set of studies appeared in the Journal of the American Medical Association, journal Surgery. And so it basically shows that there were 4,582 injuries between 2014 and 2018. There were 4,500 in 2014. By 2018, there were 14,651. So, And what that amounts to is a 3 times increase, or about 365% increase in injuries that required people to go to hospitals. And, of course, we don't know how many injuries have occurred, minor strains and sprains and other things. But the type of injuries that were showing up at hospitals, the most frequent injury is an extremity fracture, so a fracture of your arm, your hand.
Oh, that one.
Those are bad, right? Those are very painful. They're going to require some kind of medical intervention, possibly surgery, depending on how bad they are. But at a minimum, you're going to probably have to have a cast, and you're going to be dealing with that. So that was 42% of the injuries that showed up were fractures in people's extremities. Now, get this one, Pat George. Now it gets really serious, because a fourth of the injuries that showed up were facial fractures. So you go flying off of this thing, you smack your face on the concrete. Now, not to mention the fact that you're going to get all kinds of abrasions and things from the concrete, but you're talking about teeth, noses, cheek fractures, orbital fractures. Facial fractures were fully 1/4 of these injuries. Now we're going to get to even more serious than that. About a fifth of the injuries were what they call intracranial hemorrhages, or that's also known as brain bleeds. So now you're talking about traumatic brain injury, which means brain damage. So 1 out of every 5 people or so that's injured on one of these e-scooters is getting a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. It's probably a concussion, and maybe even more serious than that. Could be long-term damage. Anytime you have a TBI, you can easily have long-term damage. So this is what's going on with those e-scooters as they've continued to deploy them in cities around the country, and we've seen an increase in their usage, including in Tampa. And I'll tell you what, all you got to do is drive around Tampa and watch the way that people are behaving on these e-scooters. And oh, by the way, if you want to look into this a little bit further, another thing they tested was what about the blood alcohol level of the people reporting to the hospital with these injuries? What about the presence of drugs in their system? And they found, no surprise, a high degree of these folks getting injured have a blood alcohol level of some significance. So they've been drinking, and a lot of them also have been using some type of drugs. So that's who we've got riding around on these scooters. And like I said, all you got to do is drive around Tampa, and you got to realize that's what's going on, because as you drive around, these people are darting in and out of traffic. They're not following any of the traffic laws. They're not stopping when they should stop. you don't have any idea what they're going to do. Now, no wonder people are getting injured on these things.
What's the strangest thing you've seen? Because I know you're in an area where you see these all the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, I see gangs of them. That's what I see. It's just gangs of people, which, I mean, is frankly, it's like you need to be a little bit tougher than riding around on an e-scooter. Now, they're not real gangs, but they're gangs of people going out and doing things at night, and the whole group of them be riding around on the scooters, and they basically take over the streets. And they're sort of weaving in and out of each other. And a lot of people, I see them sort of weaving back and forth across the lanes. And I guess they think they're having fun. I'm watching them. I'm thinking, man, you just hit one bump or something. You're off that thing. And next thing you know, you've fractured your arm. You've broken your foot. You've got some kind of brain bleed going on from some intracranial hemorrhaging. It's just unbelievable. And of course, unless it happens to you, and particularly if you're a young person and you haven't had this kind of experience, you tend to feel invincible. And you think, well, look, everybody's doing it. I'm not going to get hurt. I mean, come on. This is the modern era. We're supposed to ride these things around.
I thank you for bringing this up because I thought one day I might get on one of those. Absolutely not will I with those kind of statistics.
Stay away from it, Pat George. Stay absolutely as far away from it as you can. And like I said, all you really have to do, folks, is just use your common sense. You get this thing going 12 or 15 miles an hour, and look at how small the wheels are, and what happens if you hit a bump. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? You think about inertia. Your body, where all the weight is tall. It's up high. It's going to keep going. I mean, if you hit a bump wrong on a bicycle, you can go flying over the handlebars, right? And that has big wheels that can, accommodate a lot of bumps. But anyway, these e-scooters, I think, are an inherently dangerous form of transportation, and it always surprises me to see so many people getting on them. Look, I like to have fun too, but it's just not wise. You don't want to be one of these statistics. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.